Right now, as you're watching this, someone is using your fear against you, not with a weapon, not with a threat, but with something far more effective, a story. A narrative designed to make you feel unsafe, uncertain, and desperate for someone to tell you what to do. Fear is the oldest tool of control ever invented. And the terrifying part, it works every single time. Because when you're afraid, truly afraid, your brain doesn't think, it obeys. Psychologists have known this for decades. Fear kills rational thought. When fear floods your nervous system, your prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, critical thinking, planning, it goes offline. You stop being an adult making informed decisions and you become a child looking for a parent. And that is exactly what every manipulator, every dictator, every propagandist in history has counted on. Today, we're going to dissect the exact psychological machinery that turns fear into obedience. We'll explore why your brain betrays you under threat, how entire populations have been hijacked through manufactured panic, and most importantly, how you can recognize the pattern and break free from it. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Roosevelt said that, but what he didn't tell you is why fear itself is so dangerous. That's what we're about to uncover. The fear switch. Deep inside your brain, buried beneath layers of evolved intelligence, sits a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your fear switch. When it activates, everything changes. Your heart rate spikes, your muscles tense, your pupils dilate. And here's the critical part, your capacity for rational thought drops dramatically. This isn't a flaw, it's a feature. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, this response kept your ancestors alive. When a predator appeared, you didn't need to analyze the situation. You needed to run. But what happens when there is no predator and the fear switch gets flipped anyway? This is where it gets disturbing. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux discovered that fear signals reach the amygdala before they reach your conscious awareness. You feel afraid before you even know why. Your body decides you are in danger before your mind can evaluate the threat. And in that gap between feeling and thinking, you are completely vulnerable. You will believe almost anything. You will follow almost anyone. You will accept almost any explanation that promises to make the fear stop. Your rational mind doesn't stand a chance against a hijacked amygdala, and the people who understand this, they use it ruthlessly. But how exactly do they trigger this switch without any real danger present? That's where things get truly sinister. Manufactured panic. Here's something most people never consider. You don't need a real threat to feel real fear. You just need a convincing story. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman demonstrated that humans are spectacularly bad at evaluating actual risk. We fear plane crashes more than car accidents, even though cars are statistically far more dangerous. We fear strangers more than people we know, even though most harm comes from those closest to us. Perception beats reality. Why? Because fear doesn't respond to statistics. It responds to vividness, to repetition, to emotional intensity. And this is the exact playbook used by those who manufacture panic. Repeat a threat often enough, make it vivid enough, make it personal enough, and the amygdala doesn't care whether the threat is real. Propaganda works best when those who are being manipulated are confident they are acting on their own free will. Consider how this works in practice. A news cycle repeats the same threatening story 17 times in a single day. Each repetition reinforces the fear. Each repetition makes the amygdala fire again. Your brain starts treating the story as a lived experience. If this pattern is starting to feel uncomfortably familiar to you, hit like and subscribe to keep exploring the depths of your psyche with me. Because what we're about to uncover goes even deeper. The manufactured panic is just the setup. The real manipulation happens in what comes next. Child mind trap. When you were a child, the world was terrifying and incomprehensible. Loud noises, darkness, being left alone, every threat felt existential. And what did you do? You ran to an authority figure, a parent, a teacher. Someone bigger, stronger, someone who seemed to have answers. Regression. This is what psychologists call psychological regression, and it doesn't stop when you grow up. Freud identified it. Modern research confirms it. When adults experience sustained fear for their safety, their livelihood, their future, something profound happens. The sophisticated adult mind begins to collapse. Critical thinking deteriorates, nuanced understanding dissolves, and in its place emerges something primitive. Prolonged fear makes adults think like frightened children. You start craving simple explanations for complex problems. You start wanting someone to tell you exactly what to do. You start dividing the world into good and evil, us and them, safe and dangerous. No gray areas, no complexity, just the desperate need for certainty in an uncertain world. Simple answers for scared minds. This regression isn't weakness, it's biology. Your brain is conserving cognitive resources for survival, but here's what makes this so dangerous. There are people who know exactly how to exploit this state, and they've been doing it for centuries. What they offer you in that moment of regression changes everything. The savior trick. Once fear has pushed you into that childlike state, something remarkable happens. You don't just want answers, you want a savior, and this is the most dangerous moment of all. The shepherd always tries to persuade the sheep that their interests and his own are the same. Think about every authoritarian leader in history, every cult leader, every manipulative figure who amassed unquestioning followers. They all used the same two-step formula. Step 1, create or amplify fear. Step 2, position yourself as the only solution. 1, identify or invent a threat. 2, amplify it until panic sets in. 3, blame a specific group or cause. 4, present yourself as the sole protector. This pattern is so consistent throughout history that political psychologist Bob Altemeyer spent 30 years studying it. His research revealed that people in a state of fear don't just tolerate authoritarian leadership, they actively seek it out. They hand over their autonomy willingly, gratefully even, because the fear made them feel powerless and the savior made them feel safe. But the safety was always an illusion. The savior needs your fear to maintain power, so the fear never actually goes away. It just gets redirected. New enemies, new threats, new reasons to stay afraid and stay loyal. It's a cycle designed to never end, and it operates not just in politics, but in places you'd never expect. Fear economics. You might think this fear manipulation is limited to dictators and political extremists. But look closer at your everyday life, and you'll see the same machinery operating everywhere. Buy now or lose. The marketing industry runs on fear. Fear of missing out, fear of not being enough, fear of falling behind. Every insurance commercial that shows disaster scenarios, every skincare ad that magnifies your imperfections, every investment pitch that warns of economic collapse. They're all pulling the same lever, your amygdala. Corporations spend billions engineering the precise fears that drive purchasing decisions. Economist and Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman proved that loss aversion, the fear of losing something, is twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining something. Marketers know this intimately. They don't sell you benefits. They sell you protection from fears you didn't even know you had until they pointed them out. Your health is at risk. Your children are in danger. Your status is slipping. Your youth is fading. And just like the political savior, they position their product as the only solution. Buy this and the fear goes away. Subscribe to this service and you'll be safe. Use this product and you'll be enough. The fear solution pipeline isn't just political. It's the engine of modern consumer culture. But the manipulation goes even deeper than your wallet. Tribal fear code. Fear doesn't just make you obedient to leaders. It does something even more insidious. It makes you hostile to outsiders. Evolutionary psychologists call this the tribal fear response. When our ancestors faced threats, survival depended on group cohesion. Fear transformed strangers into enemies and neighbors into threats. Those outside the tribe were potential competitors for resources, potential threats to safety. And the brain evolved a shortcut when afraid, categorize quickly, us versus them, safe versus dangerous, friend versus enemy, no time for nuance. Fear is the fastest way to turn a thinking person into a tribalist. Social psychologist Henry Tajfel demonstrated in his minimal group experiments that it takes almost nothing to create tribal divisions. Give people arbitrary labels and they immediately favor their own group. Now add fear to that equation, and the tribalism becomes extreme. Us versus them. Manipulators exploit this ruthlessly. Create fear, then point to an outgroup, immigrants, the elite, the opposition, a different religion, a different race. It doesn't matter who, what matters is that fearful people need someone to blame, and once the blame lands, the fearful mind stops asking questions. It stops seeing individuals, it sees only threats. The enemy is not other people. The enemy is fear itself and those who weaponize it. This tribalism feels righteous. It feels like protection, but it's really just fear wearing a mask of certainty, and breaking free from it requires something most people are unwilling to do. Digital fear farm. Everything we've discussed so far has been supercharged by one invention, the algorithm. Social media platforms have created the most efficient fear distribution system in human history, and they did it not out of malice, but out of something arguably worse, indifference to consequences in pursuit of profit. Engagement. Here's how it works. Algorithms are designed to maximize engagement, and what generates the most engagement? Fear, outrage, anxiety. A 2021 study from the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that each moral emotional word in a social media post increased its spread by 20%. Fear-based content doesn't just spread, it dominates. Your feed is an engineered fear loop designed to keep you scrolling. Every time you react to a frightening post, the algorithm learns. It feeds you more fear. Your amygdala fires more frequently. Your worldview becomes darker. Your sense of threat becomes chronic. You are not scrolling through reality, you are scrolling through a curated nightmare. And in this perpetual state of low-grade fear, you become the perfect target. For advertisers selling solutions, for politicians selling protection, for influencers selling certainty. Scroll, fear, obey, repeat. The digital fear farm doesn't need guards or walls, it just needs your attention. And it has it for an average of 7 hours a day, but perhaps the most frightening form of fear control is the one you impose on yourself. Inner jailer. Here's where this gets deeply personal. The most effective prison doesn't need walls, guards, or chains. It only needs one thing, a prisoner who believes they can't leave. People are not prisoners of fate, but only prisoners of their own minds. After being exposed to enough external fear manipulation, something shifts inside you. You internalize the control. You become your own jailer. Psychologist Martin Seligman called this learned helplessness. In his landmark experiments, subjects who experienced repeated uncontrollable negative events eventually stopped trying to escape, even when escape became possible. You stop trying not because you cannot escape, but because you believe you cannot. Think about your own life. How many times have you not pursued something because you were afraid of failure? How many conversations have you avoided because you feared rejection? How many dreams have you abandoned because someone told you they were unrealistic? This is fear's ultimate victory, when it no longer needs an external source, when you generate it yourself, when the voice telling you to stay small, stay quiet, stay safe is your own voice. Your own fear controls you. The inner jailer whispers the same message every manipulator uses: the world is dangerous, you are not enough, don't take the risk. And because the voice comes from inside, you trust it completely. But there's a way to recognize this voice for what it is. Breaking the spell. So how do you fight back against a system that has been perfected over millennia? The answer might surprise you. You don't fight fear, you observe it. Awareness is the antidote to manipulation. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps, discovered something extraordinary in the most terrifying conditions imaginable. Between a stimulus and your response, there is a space. In that space lies your freedom. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our freedom and power to choose our response. The next time you feel a surge of fear, from a headline, a speech, a social media post, pause. Don't react, ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What specifically am I afraid of right now? 2. Who benefits from me feeling this fear? 3. Is this fear based on evidence or narrative? These 3 questions short-circuit the amygdala hijack. They force your prefrontal cortex back online. They move you from reaction to reflection. The moment you question your fear, you reclaim your power to think. Cognitive behavioral therapy has proven that simply naming your fear reduces its intensity by up to 50%. Neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman calls this effect labeling. When you put words to your emotions, the amygdala's response diminishes measurably. Fear loses its power the moment you see it for what it is, not reality, but a story someone is telling you, including the stories you tell yourself. But awareness alone isn't enough. There's one final piece that changes everything. Courage is choice. Courage is not the absence of fear. Every brave person who ever lived was afraid. Courage is the decision that something else matters more than the fear. Courage is a choice. Philosopher Soren Kierkegaard wrote that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. The fear you feel isn't always a sign of danger. Sometimes it's a sign that you're standing at the edge of growth, the edge of a decision that could change your life. And every manipulator, every system of control, every algorithm feeding you fear, they all need one thing from you. They need you to stay on the safe side of that edge. Every system of control depends on you choosing comfort over courage. The antidote to fear-based control isn't fearlessness. It's deliberate action in the presence of fear. It's reading beyond the headlines. It's questioning the narrative before sharing it. It's having the conversation you've been avoiding. It's pursuing the goal that terrifies you. The system breaks the moment you stop obeying your fear. Start small. Notice when fear is driving your decisions. Notice when someone is using your anxiety to sell you something, a product, an ideology, a worldview, and then choose differently, not recklessly, but consciously. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. The people who control through fear are counting on your silence, your compliance, your willingness to let anxiety make your choices for you. Prove them wrong. Fear will always exist. It's wired into your biology. It kept your ancestors alive. But there is a vast difference between the fear that protects you from a genuine threat and the fear that is manufactured, amplified, and weaponized to keep you obedient. See the fear break free. The moment you understand that fear is a tool, that it can be created, directed, and exploited, you stop being a target. You start being a conscious observer of your own psychology. You start asking who benefits from your anxiety. You start choosing your responses instead of having them chosen for you. Understanding fear is the first step to reclaiming your mind. This isn't about never being afraid. It's about never letting fear think for you again. If you made it this far, comment "fear decoded" if you're ready to stop letting fear make your decisions. Welcome to the Psyche Project. If this opened your eyes, hit like and subscribe. Understanding yourself is the work of a lifetime. See you in the next video.